So that's what happens when you just accept the narratives, the conventional wisdom, you put it in your brain. It kills you. Okay? It makes you sick and fat and chains you to your desk, and it's slavery. We have elected to be personally sovereign in the sense that we will occupy our own brains, and you have to actively occupy it with your own intentional narrative and then defend that space from outside invading narratives. And if it sounds a little crazy, maybe, but like in our age of narrative and social media, people are trying to inject ideas into your brain. We all know someone who 10 years ago was totally normal, totally fine, great values. We got along. You could work with them, live with them. Hell, you could have married them. 10 years later, today, they're insane. They are insane with critical race theory, Black Lives Matter, the whole thing, see race and racism everywhere. Say, hey, it's cool, burn down these cities, who cares? They're insane. Why? Because they didn't actively defend their mind space. They weren't critical of the narratives that were inserted into their brains, and now it's leading them astray. And so that's what personal sovereignty is for us. And let me just finish. That's made up of 7 things. And this is what, I mean, we actively work on this. We workshop this, we study it, we have classes, we have programs. It starts with integrity, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional integrity. And I don't mean doing the right thing. I mean like the strength and structure, and then integrated into a whole. Physical starts with the squat rack. Every one of our members has to work towards and achieve physical fitness standards. We all encourage everyone to be spiritual. We study cognitive behavioral therapy so that we can control our emotions. We work on our skills of discernment, of embodiment, of choice in making, commitment, and of sense making. And again, the goal here is to embody your values. Personal sovereignty. That's what we're all about.
Well, I think
go ahead, Robert.
There is the key to self-empowerment. The first step is self-education, which is what the liminal order prioritizes out of the gate. And I often have had this conversation because, like, people say there's this tendency. There was even, frankly, a weakness in Trumpism in part that was to delegate power that allowed the QAnon phenomenon to even exist. Yes. It said you don't have the power, only this guy does. And so your goal is just to forfeit your own self-education, self-information, and give it to this person because he's the only solution. And if a lot of people that are locked up related to January 6th convinced themselves that only Trump could save them, but that they could not save themselves in an independent way. And can you talk, like, the whole reason why we created our locals board, vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
You're getting it, Robert.
Is because the first step is and I've been following Jack for a long time, known him for many years. Great guy. I loved what you were doing in the liminal order, because what I've tried to tell people who are saying, well, sometimes they want Viva to sue. They want me to bring like every lawsuit. I bring as many as I can, one guy. But I keep telling them the first big step is you. Self-empowerment. It starts with self-education. And you change the world individually, and you don't understand how significant and consequential that is. The system understands that. The wokesters understand that. Gramsci understood that when he talked about the slow march through institutions, and we're seeing the outcome of it today because some 1970s community college professor understood it when he started preaching it, started teaching it, to where now it's in your local public school in a small town in Tennessee. Could you tell me what led you to understand how important? I mean, you followed up with concrete action, creating the liminal order, but Can you explain why self-education is such a critical step to meaningful self-empowerment?
Yeah. It's interesting. Our mutual friend, Mike Cernovich, he became very popular because he started writing about mindset, right? What's mindset? Mindset is the ability to use self-talk to control your frame, to control your own narrative. And so Mike was actually one of the first people to turn me on to this idea of really active. And you mentioned one of his big influences too earlier. Do you know who I'm gonna say? Jerry Spence, right? Narrative, man. It's all about the story. You got to tell the story. It's always about the story, and the right kind of storytelling, right? But Mike turned me on to mindset. Mike turned me on to the idea of being able to control your thoughts, control your emotions, not to not have emotions, not to disregard your emotions. No. If you are an in tune person, you should really listen to your emotions. That's your pre-language body telling you something. And by the way, everybody, our pre-language body is way older than our language body, right? It got us here. These instincts, the senses that we have. Pay attention to your emotions after you've confirmed that they're not telling you a lie, right? So anyway, I'm going to go back now to the question that you asked me like 5 questions ago that we never got to, because it's closing the loop here. I am a naturally curious person, and that is exactly how I got to this point. I want to know why. I want to know why, and I want to know now. And I'm willing to put in the time and the effort and the energy to figure it out. That's why I started my podcast. My podcast is entirely this idea that I wanted, I read this great book. Man, wouldn't it be great to talk to the author for 2 or 3 hours about it? And that's just been the animating force all the way through. And so in this environment today where our institutions are corrupted, every institution that used to help us, save you, teach you, help give you meaning, all of them are corrupted and captured. Period. Gone. You must take on the responsibility of becoming an autodidact. My son is 14. And the other day he told me, I did not know this. He told me that he wrote an essay in class saying that going to college was stupid. And I was like, oh gosh. I mean, I know I've been telling you that. I know we've been talking about it, but you wrote a paper in class and you presented it. And he's like, yeah, man. And I didn't feel anything weird about it. Everyone in the class was like, how could you say that? Because of course they're all beaten over the head every single day. This is Bethesda, Maryland, right? It's all of them sons and daughters of lawyers and diplomats, right? They all think that the only choice in the whole universe is to go to college. But what I told my son just the other night was like, look, you may not have to go to college today, but that doesn't mean you don't have to learn. You must learn. You must teach yourself. You must find mentors. You must find other teachers. And the way that this world is evolving, for example, is the best college professors are doing bespoke, customized, individualized coursework now. I took a course this spring called Applied Complexity with Joe Norman. Joe Norman is a applied complexity scientist. He wrote a paper with Nassim Taleb in January of 2020 that led to the shutdown of international flights that probably saved a lot of lives when it came to Corona. He's not teaching in university. He's teaching private classes. I took a philosophy class with Michael Millerman, world-leading philosopher. May not have a contemporary equal in some subject areas. And he offers private education. You can get combination of free courses out there and private, bespoke, custom assembled for yourself education. And you must continuously educate yourself. There is no way that you can sit back and just absorb and think that you're going to come out ahead. Because if you just absorb what they tell you, you're going to be fat, sick, and chained to a desk in debt with your kids locked up in the basement, especially if you're in Canada.
Okay, but Jack, so here's my question. First of all, Courtney, I forgot her last name already. Courtney wants to know if you're going to open a liminal program for women. And it's sort of in the same vein of a question. I like the clarification of the specificity you're giving. That this sounds like, a lot like Jordan Peterson's 12 rules. It sounds like very good lessons for anybody to learn, and I suspect they can get all these same principles on your podcast, regardless of whether or not they're members of the Liminal Order by virtue of them not being men. The question is this: my immediate fear and reflex always goes to people getting the wrong impression of when you say fight for call to action, et cetera, et cetera. What's the assurance? What is the underlying principle that this is all done in a manner that, in the lawful manner, that nobody takes the wrong message from this? When you say call to action, defend what it means to defend the values that are near and dear to you.
All right. First of all, no, I will never start a women's liminal order. Why? The values are masculinity and brotherhood. 2, there's not a women's liminal order. You know why? No offense. That's just not how women work. Why not? Build it. Go for it. 100%. Go build it. The liminal order is a manifestation of masculine energy. We built, we provide, we protect, we instruct, we master. This is just our energy, and it's manifested inside the liminal order. Now, I want to push back on your question. Why do I have to tell you that I'm not going to do something illegal and terrible? Why is that your assumption, friend?
Well, it's not an assumption. And this is
No, it was baked into the question.
no, and admittedly, it is it's something that I struggle with. It's something where when you have people following you, and one uses rhetoric that could be influencing to some but inciting to others, the question is, whether or not you feel any responsibility for people who are following you strictly, who might get the wrong impression.
Sure.
Or just bottom line, if it's, I suspect it is baked into the principles itself that you do this and you fight for things lawfully, otherwise you just become the monster that you're battling. And I mean that's the fine line. Now I do agree, in social media, especially in social media, the tendency is to say you're guilty of all the comments of your subs and your followers, and look who watches you, look who's commenting, therefore you must be doing something wrong if you're attracting a crowd that says certain things. And I don't believe in guilt by association. The only question is when you use I won't say inflammatory rhetoric, but emotional rhetoric, because you're emotional and you want to get the point across. Where do you feel the responsibility or weigh the words to make sure that nobody gets the wrong impression?
I understand where you're getting at. You're fishing, though. I've never said anything inflammatory, call to action that was anything illegal. I know. That was anything illegal. So we've been very clear from the beginning. A, we're not the effing Proud Boys, and we never will be. Okay. B, we'll never make any public display of force. We don't go to protests. We don't fly flags. We don't provide security for people. We're not a militia. We're not any of that stuff. Clear as day, written in the literature. And if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I am vehement about that. And I shame and shun all that other stuff. We are Gandhi, bro. We are be the change. We're being the change we want to see in the world today. We are starting with ourselves. And we're taking care of our family. We're taking care of our community. And for those of us inside the Liminal Order that can do that, and then some of us are trying to take care of the nation as well. And all I'm doing is providing a venue by which men can commune together to take the benefit of community. Science shows very clearly that community makes you happier, healthier, and wealthier.